welcome to Smaulgld. In case you missed it, top gold and silver stories for the week ended December 16th, 2016. Currencies in crisis. We have a few stories involving 3 different currencies in crisis or potential crisis during the last week. The first one, new Indian rupee notes crumble, literally. So what happened, if those of you are not up to speed on the Indian demonetization of the rupee, India's Prime Minister Modi announced at the early part of November that the 2 largest bills in circulation, which represent 86% of Indian currency, the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, would be demonetized, meaning that people would have to turn them in for new notes or deposit them into banks. Otherwise, those old notes would become, in his words, utterly worthless pieces of paper. So, what they intended to do was print new notes. This way people would return the old notes and they would flush out the dark money and the bad cash that was obtained illegally. One of the notes that they produced was a larger note, a 2,000 rupee note. And according to reports, and I'll put a link in the blog post that is linked to at the bottom of this YouTube video, the notes themselves literally crumble. So if you click on the link, we'll get to that later in the program, you can see it. After a day or two, it just starts to fall apart. So I would say that so far the Indian demonetization program isn't going very well. They haven't printed enough notes to exchange. They haven't flushed out as much dark money as they thought, and some of the notes that they have printed are literally crumbling. Also in a troubling development, Indian gold dealers found their bank accounts frozen. Still following up on that story. Over in Venezuela, back to the Western Hemisphere, the Venezuelan president tried the same stunt that Modi did. Maduro decided that within 72 hours, the 100 Bolivar note, the currency of Venezuela, would also be worthless and they would have to be turned in. Well, in a new twist, the Venezuelan government decided not only are they going to pull those notes from circulation, but they're not going to exchange all 100 Bolivar notes that people turn in. Only if you have, quote, reasonable amounts will you be allowed to turn your notes in and exchange or deposit them into Venezuelan banks. Australian notes, same thing. What's happening there is they're concerned that people use the $100 Australian note to conduct business that is out of the purview of the taxman, so they're talking about getting rid of that. Just a warning, with negative interest rates on the way in some countries, or already there, what some people have done is they say, well, I know how to get out of that. I'll just keep my cash, not in the bank where it's subject to negative rates. I'll just keep it at home. I'll keep it in the safe. I'll keep it off site. Wherever they want to keep it, they're going to keep it. However, we've now seen in 2 separate governments what they'll do, or they could do, is say, well, those notes that you have before a certain date, they're no longer valid. They've expired. And if you want, you're going to have to turn them in for new notes. And maybe we won't have enough notes for you. And maybe the notes that we give to you may crumble. Or maybe we'll ask you to prove where you got the money. And maybe you won't be able to do that. So now it looks like even hoarding cash is difficult or problematic if the government decides to make it so. In other news, the Fed raised the Fed funds rate 1/4 point and hinted at no further stimulus. We'll talk about that in a second. Also, in political news, Obama blamed the Russians for hacking the U.S. election, and he had told Putin to cut it out. I'm now accepting Bitcoin for donations. So any of you Bitcoin adherents interested in sending Smaulgld a small donation in Bitcoin, I'm now equipped to accept those through Coinbase. You can do so on the Smaulgld site. I'll also put a link below this YouTube video where you can check out the wallet and donate Bitcoin as you wish. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Now, in top news, Obama gave a press conference and he took credit for 15 million new jobs. He's going through his achievements of the past 8 years. He said we've had income gains, 4.6 unemployment, the deficit's been cut by 2/3, Stock market's at all-time high. There's been no attack from foreign powers. He's open trade with Cuba, and America is more respected than it was 8 years ago. Then he goes on to blame Russia for hacking Podesta's emails, which he called revealed mundane things like risotto recipes. But somehow that helped Trump win the election. So he is taking credit for all these accomplishments, but somehow his successor, Hillary Clinton, didn't win because the Russians hacked the elections and revealed John Podesta's risotto recipes. I find that kind of extraordinary, far more extraordinary than his taking credit for some of the achievements that on paper he has achieved. Just a note, I noticed recently with all this fake news controversy that what the mainstream media does when it wants to push their narrative, they find experts to push it for them. So they say experts say, and they don't have to be experts. They don't even have to name them. They just have to say experts say. I view that as code for we believe. Top economic news. Now the Fed raised interest rates and says that they anticipate 3 rate hikes. And remember, last year when they raised interest rates, they said they'd be 4. So take whatever they're saying with a grain of salt. And then St. Louis Fed President Bullard has been saying for the past 9 months that we probably only need 1 rate hike over the next year and a half, 2 years. After this came out and the Fed announcement that they would raise rates and that they were going to raise rates 3 times in 2017, he said, okay, maybe 1 in 2017. So who knows if Bullard will be proven to be right. Who knows if they'll do any in 2017. I did a podcast on this. It's linked below in this blog post. You can see it. It's also on the YouTube channel. My thoughts on what the Fed recently did. We're not going to cover those here. However, I do want to note something that I did note in that podcast, that during the press conference, Fed Chair Janet Yellen was asked, I think it was by Leisman of CNN, if she thought that fiscal stimulus was necessary now that Trump is coming in, and how can the economy be boosted? And both former Fed Chair Bernanke and Janet Yellen had been whining, or I shouldn't say whining, well, I'll say whining, they were whining, that if monetary policy couldn't handle all the flaws in the economy and that Congress needed to act, and perhaps they should do infrastructure spending, they should do some sort of fiscal stimulus to help the economy. Now, Donald Trump has been talking about just that. He's been talking about boosting the economy through infrastructure spending, military spending, industrialization, and so on. And when Leisman asked Janet Yellen if the economy needed a boost of fiscal stimulus, she said, well, I said that when, the unemployment rate was a lot higher and things weren't going as well. And basically, she said, Congress and Trump don't need to engage in fiscal stimulus, implying, in my view, that the Fed's already fixed the economy, so Donald Trump doesn't need to do it, which is interesting because certainly, in my view, if Hillary Clinton was coming in, she'd be all in favor of whatever infrastructure plans that Hillary Clinton might have had. But now what it seems like the Fed wants to say is, hey, look, we fixed the economy. Don't worry about it. But that is also a signal. If the Fed doesn't think that fiscal stimulus is needed in terms of boosting the economy, well, that also means they don't believe monetary stimulus is necessary either. So there's no need to do QE4 in her mind because the Fed has fixed it. That's why they're raising rates. And we'll keep an eye on it. I think Trump will do fiscal stimulus. I don't think Trump would look kindly upon the Fed doing any monetary stimulus, like buying assets. I think that Donald Trump believes that that is creating a phony economy. He said it creates a bubble by boosting asset prices. I think Donald Trump wants to create a real economy with real industrial jobs, and he has some strange, well, not strange, unorthodox ways of doing it by putting in tariffs, but basically forcing the U.S. industry to produce for the United States people and not to rely on financialization, not to rely on asset prices being boosted through monetary policy, negative interest rates, zero interest rates, quantitative easing, whatever it is, to boost existing asset prices. I think he wants to see real progress in the economy, not just rising home prices and rising stock prices. More on that in a future podcast. Gold and silver. Gold and silver closed last week down, both of them. Gold was down about 25 bucks to 11.34, or down 2%, and silver took a bigger beating down to 16.07, or down 4.5%, although it was below $16 an ounce on Thursday, but it rebounded nicely on Friday. So did gold a bit, but your gold silver ratio is still now hovering over 70 to 1. Chart of the week. Nick Laird over at ShareLinks produced a very nice chart. You click on the link that's in the blog post that tracks the traders at Deutsche Bank and other bullion banks manipulating the share prices, and then he shows on a chart. If you click on the top, you can see what the traders are saying, and then you can see the result on the chart as the price gets smashed down. So he tied in the manipulation to the chart. It's a very nice looking chart. Mike Maloney did an entire video on it. You can check that out. You can just click on the link here and you can play with that chart yourself. Here's the pitch. Please donate at this time of year, the Christmas season, holiday season, whatever your persuasion may be. If you'd like to donate to Smaulgld, we appreciate all the hard work we're doing here. Please donate via PayPal, or you can donate via Bitcoin. I've added a Bitcoin, you can see there's the Bitcoin payment information. You can put in your number of Bitcoin that you'd like to send to Smaulgld, or you can just do it via PayPal. But I really appreciate it. People have sent me some very generous donations. It helps pay for the website, it helps pay for the storage fees, it helps pay for a lot of the work that we do here. All right, let's go through the stories now of the week. Indian demonetization fallout. As I mentioned, Axis Bank, India's top gold importer, suspends bullion dealers' accounts. So we'll see where that goes. It's not a good sign. They did that in Sweden. They've done that in Estonia, where they realize that gold is kind of the link to getting around the system. So if people are going to go to gold dealers, they're going to try to harass the gold dealers. Also, a company in India fires 25% of its workers as demonetization destroys sales. So that makes sense, because if you don't have cash and you haven't been able to turn them in, and you don't have the ability to pay digitally, you can't buy stuff. So obviously some people can still buy things, and they are in the digital world, but there is definitely a hit being taken in the Indian economy. Indian gold imports set to jump to year's high in November. Now, we put out a podcast. We had October's official numbers. They were up, but that was prior to the demonetization. It looks like Indian gold imports were up again in November, but then it appears that they've dropped off in December. We don't know yet, but that's because, again, without cash, it's harder to buy gold. What people did when they first heard of Modi's demonetization, they rushed out and bought gold. That put a spike in the price, a spike in the volume of trading of gold, but that has since supposedly, we'll have to see the official numbers when they come out, dropped off a bit. Of course, the smuggling continues in India. 2 babies found with 16 kilos worth of gold in their diapers. That's quite a load. I guess whoever picked up the babies at customs probably felt they were a little heavy, and that's when they discovered the gold. Thieves hold up armored car for gold on the highway in southeast France. You can check out that story as well. Now, a U.S. Mint sales update. Basically, they've come to a crawl or a standstill, or they're finished for the year. U.S. Silver Eagles appear to be done. They finished at 37,601,000. Looks like gold Eagles are also finished being sold. Looks like they sold 817,000. However, looks like they're still selling as of Friday. They were still selling gold buffaloes. It looks like they've stopped selling also the beautiful coins. But if you're interested in buying them, they're still available. You can buy American Silver Eagles at any of the links on the Smaulgld site. That's another way Smaulgld pays for the site. I get a small commission, just so you know, on any sales through these affiliates. I don't sell the gold or silver directly. I sell it through these bullion dealers. If you click on those links, you go straight to the bullion dealer site, and you pay no more, no less than if you'd visited the sites directly. So if you are interested in buying gold or silver, I'm not saying that it's a good idea or a bad idea, but if you are interested and it's for you and you want to do it and you're going to do it anyway, please do it through the Smaulgld site. There's a number of dealers. There's at least a half a dozen of them you can choose from. Check pricing and shipping. You check out the links. You can check out the banners on the site, and also I'll leave some links below this podcast YouTube so you can purchase from there directly. Indian silver imports, we reported this week, were up 42% in October. They're still lower by historical standards. We'll see where they go in November. We'll also see what impact the silver demand or the gold crackdown has on silver demand. In this particular YouTube video, I say probably not much. Others, like my colleague over at Wealth Watchman, he thinks it's going to be a big boon for silver. I disagree. I think that the government's going to crack down on gold and people rush into silver, yes, there might be a temporary boom for silver, but if the government is serious about cracking down on non-cash alternatives and black money and people using silver as a way to end run the reporting requirements and they move into silver, I think that India will just crack down on silver as well. Here's your link on the Australian 100 note in the crosshairs. Now, Chinese gold demand finally for the first month in 2016 was up as reflected by Shanghai Gold Exchange withdrawals. It was the strongest November ever on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. So it looks like after a year of rising prices and declining demand, now that we have falling prices and some pent-up demand in Shanghai Gold Exchange now is having a experiencing very large demand, and you can see 215 tons withdrawn in November, making it the largest November ever, even larger than the last 2 years, and last year was a record year. Here you can find the link on government won't exchange all boulevards and preferred currency swaps. You can read that article there. There's your note to donate to Smaulgld via PayPal. You can also do so through Bitcoin. Some stories on gold. Dutch court rules Crimean gold treasures must be returned to Kiev. Okay, now U.S. economic data plods along. Retail sales not very good. However, the producer price index went up, so sales are not robust, but it looks like the inflation is picking up. The Fed likes that. They think that's a signal of something good. It's like when they see a fast car going, a lot of smoke is coming out of the back. They think that all that smoke causes the car to go faster. It really doesn't. It's actually better if the car wasn't producing all that smoke. But in any event, your core PPI, your PPI are all up in November, up from October. Here is the link to, or you can click directly on the YouTube on why is there still confidence in the dollar and the Fed after the Fed's recent raising of interest rates only once in 2016 after they promised 4 in 2016, and yet all that talking about 4 rate hikes and then finally doing it has boosted the dollar to 14-year highs. And there's some more explanation in that YouTube. There was not an accompanying blog post to that. I used older blog posts that I had written over the past few years saying that the Fed would raise rates, not significantly, but that each year in 2015 and 2016 I said they would raise rates once, and they did. While many were saying they could never raise rates or that they would lower rates. In any event, here's also some more opportunities to buy gold eagles, silver eagles. They're still available, the 2016s. It's just that they've stopped reporting sales to the authorized purchasers. But the authorized purchasers and these bullion dealers still have the 2016 coins as they await and are taking orders for the 2017 coins. If you want to read about and see the Indian new notes crumbling, you can click on that link. There was fake police walk off with £4 million worth of gold in Japan. Interesting story about, if you know some history on a famous astronomer, Tycho Brahe, I believe he was Dutch. No, I think he was Danish. Anyway, he died full of gold. You can read about why he died full of gold. The housing market index was up according to sentiment of home builders, but yet new home starts were down. So you can't always go by sentiment. It doesn't necessarily match reality, but sentiment does drive markets in many respects and sometimes more than reality. And that's why there's always a media push, a Federal Reserve push to create a positive sentiment and a positive spin on economic data, or to even doctor the data if necessary. Philadelphia Fed was up, Empire Fed was up, all unexpectedly. Those numbers have been down for the last couple of years, but they're starting to inch up, even though the employment aspects of them are not moving upward. Here we go. Indian gold imports were up 23.24 in November. Another projection, this one by Business Standard of India, that gold imports were up because of the sudden rupee demonetization that occurred earlier in the month. Interesting story here. Inside the world's deepest underground luxury suite in a Swedish silver mine. If anyone's interested in staying underground in Sweden near some in a silver mine, check that story out. And doesn't really appeal to me. You know, it also doesn't appeal to me as staying in these underwater hotels. I'm not sure why you'd want to put yourself underground. Miners get paid to go underground, and sounds like you go and pay to stay underground. It's like when people do that farming tourism where people work and get paid to pick strawberries, blueberries, and other fruits and vegetables, and you pay these farmers to go and do the work yourself. Anyway, to each his own. I believe that might be it for this week. Yes, that is it for this week. And please remember to subscribe to Smaulgld. Oh, by the way, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, I just found this out. This has been something that's been on YouTube for quite some time. But when you do subscribe to Smaulgld, you go to the subscribe button. If you don't click on the bell next to it, you basically haven't subscribed. You're listed as a subscriber, but you won't get the updates or the notifications in that email when they send out all the other stories that you've been subscribed to. So you kind of have to make the effort to click on the bell. You can't just subscribe. So please do that. And also, stay in touch through subscribing to Smaulgld directly, smaulgld.com, by entering in your email address, and then I will send you the top blog posts when and as they come out, and also special subscriber notes. Thank you very much.